Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first lesson in our 18th series. I hope you've been enjoying the Bible studies so far. If you do have requests for subject matters, please feel free to let me know. So for the 18th series, I went through a long list of different topics that I thought might be prevalent for discussion, shall we say. And what I decided on is to do a series on the series that my Bible suggests for abuse. Now, even if you yourself have not been abused, there is a certain level of uncertainty to life. There is that possibility. So kind of having this lesson beforehand can help you to muster through it, to still have that reassurance, to keep these lessons in the back of your mind. If you have been abused, this can be a great series just in terms of knowing that God is here for you during this recovery process. And if those first two don't apply to you, there's a possibility that you will come across someone that has been abused, whether that's a friend, a family member, or just in volunteering. You will come across someone who has been hurt physically, emotionally, spiritually by another person. And these may be useful lessons in kind of helping them, being a non-anxious presence, in helping them out, in being supportive of them while they recover. So I thought this would be a great series to take on. It is a heavy subject, I acknowledge that, but I think it's important to talk about as well. So that said, let us jump into this series. The first lesson for today is out of the book of 2 Samuel, chapter 13, verses 1 through 22. It's a fairly famous passage. It's Amnon raping Tamar. It's a very dark story, very heavy story, but chock full of good things to think about. Before we get to the reading itself, though, we do have some icebreaker questions. First of which is, in high school, who was someone on whom you had a secret crush? Someone that I secretly crushed on in high school was my friend Audrey. She was a year younger than me. She was definitely more popular. She was a cheerleader, but not for football games. She was a cheerleader more for competitions. At least that was my understanding. She had a very sweet heart, though. She was one of my closest friends and someone I knew that I could share my true self with, someone I didn't have to pretend to be someone I wasn't for. She and I went to church together. We planned youth group events and youth Sunday, all of these things together. We were very active in the church. So definitely she was my high school crush. What about you all? When you were in high school, who was someone that you had a crush on? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, our second icebreaker question is, what's something, a food or activity, etc., that you thought you would love, but after trying it, didn't like? Well, there's a number of foods that I could say I thought I would like it, but didn't. Or thought I wouldn't like, but did like. So, reverse of this question. In terms of something that I thought I would like, but didn't. Playing trombone. quite honestly. When I was in 5th grade, I was given the opportunity to join band, to start playing a musical instrument, not just a recorder, in 4th grade music class. So I had the opportunity to learn an instrument. I wanted to learn trumpet. I was told, no, you can't learn trumpet. We have too many trumpets already. How about you pick trombone, like your brother? So I played trombone, and for the longest time I tried to find it enjoyable. I tried to play more advanced music, something that would be challenging for me, something I might get some enjoyment out of, but just never did. So within the last year or so, I've officially given it up, sold my trombone, and called it good. What about you all? What's something that you thought you would love, but after trying it didn't like? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, we will jump into the reading. Again, we are in 2 Samuel chapter 13, verses 1 through 22. Listen now for the word of our Lord. In the course of time, Amnon, son of David, fell in love with Tamar, the beautiful sister of Absalom, son of David. Amnon became frustrated to the point of illness on account of his sister Tamar, for she was a virgin, and it seemed impossible for him to do anything to her. Now Amnon had a friend named Jonadab, son of Shemaiah, David's brother. Jonadab was a very shrewd man. He asked Amnon, "Why do you, the king's son, look so haggard morning after morning? Won't you tell me?" Amnon said to him, "I'm in love with Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister." "Go to bed and pretend to be ill," Jonadab said. "When your father comes to see you, say to him, 'I would like my sister Tamar to come and give me something to eat. Let her prepare the food in my sight so I may watch her and then eat it from her hand.'" So Amnon lay down and pretended to be ill. When the king came to see him, Amnon said to him, "I would like my sister Tamar to come and make some special bread in my sight so I may eat from her hand." David sent word to Tamar at the palace, "Go to the house of your brother Amnon and prepare some food for him." So Tamar went to the house of her brother Amnon, who was lying down. She took some dough, kneaded it, made the bread in his sight, and baked it. Then she took the pan and served him the bread, but he refused to eat. "Send everyone out of here," Amnon said. So everyone left him. Then Amnon said to Tamar, "Bring the food here into my bedroom, so I may eat from your hand." And Tamar took the bread she had prepared and brought it to her brother Amnon in his bedroom. But when she took it to him to eat, he grabbed her and said, "Come to bed with me, my sister." "Don't, my brother," she said to him. "Don't force me. Such a thing would not be done in Israel, or should not be done in Israel. Don't do this wicked thing. What about me? Where could I get rid of my disgrace? And what about you? You would be like one of the wicked fools in Israel. Please speak to the king. He will not keep me from being married to you." But he refused to listen to her, and since he was stronger than her, he raped her. Then Amnon hated her with intense hatred. In fact, he hated her more than he had loved her. Amnon said to her, "Get up and get out." "No," she said to him, "sending me away would be a greater wrong than what you have already done to me." But he refused to listen to her. He called his personal servant and said, "Get this woman out of here and bolt the door after her." So his servant put her out and bolted the door after her. She was wearing a richly ornamented robe, for this was the kind of garment the virgin daughters of the king wore. Tamar put ashes on her head and tore the ornamented robe she was wearing. She put her hand on her head and went away, weeping aloud as she went. Her brother Absalom said to her, "Has that Amnon your brother been with you? Be quiet now, my sister. He is your brother. Don't take this thing to heart." And Tamar lived in her brother Absalom's house, a desolate woman. When King David heard all this, he was furious. Absalom never said a word to Amnon, neither good or bad. He hated Amnon because he had disgraced his sister Tamar. This is the word of our Lord. Thanks be to God. Our first question in regards to this reading is, what would you call Amnon's feelings towards his half-sister at the beginning of the story? Puppy love, obsession, lust, innocent, infatuation, unnatural. Definitely unnatural. Having romantic feelings towards a sibling, even a half-sibling, is taboo in every culture that I am aware of. There may be a culture out there where it's not, but all the same, I think it's agreeable that it is unnatural. To me, it sounds almost like it's raging hormones. It's puppy love, it's lust, but it's not natural. It's not something that's going to last. It's a spur of the moment, heat of the moment kind of feeling, and it's something that would dissipate with time, something that it did do. What do you all think? What would you call Amnon's feelings towards his sister at the beginning of the story? Let me know in the comments. Question number 2. Amnon's friend Jonadab gives Amnon some advice about his love life. What would a real friend have told Amnon? You've got bad thoughts. You should see a counselor. Can I pray for you? You need to talk to your father. I'm going to stay and talk through this problem with you, or something else. A good friend would have been straightforward and said, these thoughts are unnatural, they're not good. Definitely encouragement of seeing a counselor, asking to pray for them, pray with them. You're saying, I'm going to be this non-anxious presence, I'm going to stay with you, and I'm going to do what I can to help you work through this problem. These are all natural things that a good friend should have said, should have done. In terms of talking to his father, that's debatable. These feelings, these thoughts that Amnon is having are unnatural. They are taboo. And in short, they are disgraceful. If he admits to his father that he is having these thoughts for his half-sister, his father may not necessarily exile him, but there would be a serious discussion that would follow. There would be a serious reprimand, potentially, that would follow. You know, as King David could very well do as he pleases. You know, given that Amnon's thoughts would be so disgraceful and potentially tarnish the crown, David may very well exile Amnon, or even execute Amnon for these thoughts. Sorry. But what do you all think? You know, Amnon's friend Jonadab tells Amnon what to do, gives him advice on how he can sleep with his sister Tamar. What do you all think a good friend should do? Or to what a good friend should say? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, we will move on to our third question. How do you explain Amnon's reversal from love to hate in this story? He was sick. He only loved himself. He never understood real love. He got what he wanted. He hated Tamar because he hated himself in all actuality. It was never love in the first place. His experience didn't live up to his fantasies. One sin leads to another, or something else. The answer that really pops out to me is he hated Tamar because he hated himself. In the back of his mind, Amnon would have known the customs. He would have known the consequences of his actions, even. So the fact that he got what he wanted, but now he knows the repercussions of these actions, he is fearful. His conscience is kicking in at this point. It's saying, no, let's try to cover it up as much as possible. His actions afterwards, sending her away, bolting the door, this may potentially be the start towards him creating some fallacy that, or falsehood, I guess would be the better word. The falsehood that Tamar came on to him and tried to seduce him, whatever. It's definitely arguable that really his hatred towards Tamar was his hatred for himself. It's his conscience getting back at him. He doesn't want to hate himself, so he projects that hatred on someone else. That's definitely a really big answer. The answer of it was never really love in the first place. That's something we've kind of touched on already, so there's that. Possibly his experience didn't live up to his fantasies. He thought it was going to go one way, it didn't really go that way. So there is the possibility that is a possible solution as well. Those are the three that really stick out to me, though. Is there one that really sticks out to you? Do you agree with me? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to read those. Question number 4. Why do you think David didn't do anything about what happened? He felt like a hypocrite because of his own moral failures. He had no moral authority due to his own failures. He didn't know what to do. He was a weak disciplinarian or something else. I think part of that would be he didn't know what to do. If your son, your daughter does something and you just can't believe that they would do something like that, the classic "I raised you better than that" scenario, your initial reaction is, what do I do? There are an infinite number of possibilities of what your child could do on a given day, so you can't really prepare for them all. Therefore, David, in the moment, was probably awestruck. I raised him better than that. Why would he do this? And that confusion potentially gets in the way of calmly or authoritatively coming up with a consequence, a punishment, knowing what to do. That's a very strong answer, a very strong possibility. Also, though, bear in mind, this is after the occurrence of David having Uriah the Hittite killed so that he can have an affair with and later marry Bathsheba, Uriah the Hittite's wife. So him disciplining Absalom for sexual immorality when he has also been sexually immoral. There is a certain question of hypocrisy. He may have felt like a hypocrite if he had said something. So that may have gotten in the way of him disciplining, of knowing what to do, so on and so forth. Those are the two that really stick out to me. What do you all think? Why do you think David didn't do anything about what happened, about about Amnon raping Tamar, his sister? Let me know in the comments. Number 5, what do you feel was the worst thing that happened to Tamar? She was raped. She was violated by someone in her own family. She was unprotected by her father. She was relegated to live as a desolate woman. She was left with the shame of being spoiled goods, something else. I would say all of the above. They're all terrible things, and no one should have to endure any of them. But I think the biggest thing is, she was left with the shame of being spoiled goods. It happened. It was done by someone she knew, someone that she perceived as loving her, a family member, a friend, something like that. So you have this huge betrayal of trust, but her brother Absalom doesn't do anything about it. Her father doesn't do anything about it. And because of societal norms, she is spoiled goods. No one wants her now. No one helps her. So she is left to deal with this on her own. This is a prime example of insult being added to injury. Something really bad happened to Tamar, and no one did anything about it. No one went after Amnon. No one punished him, at least in this situation. This is definitely adding insult to injury. No one comforts her, I think, is the easiest way to put it. She's treated more as an object than as a person. And I think that is the worst thing that actually happens to her, is her being objectified rather than treated as a human. And it's not even just Amnon that does it. Absalom, David, they all objectify her on some level. It's just in a different way than Amnon does. So I think that's the worst thing that happens to Tamar. Let me know what you all think, though. What do you think is the worst thing that happens to Tamar in this story? Let me know in the comments. Question number 6. What effect can a traumatic event like what happened to Tamar have on a person's faith in God? There are two possibilities that come to mind for me. One is, it depends also on the care received from family, friends, neighbors following the traumatic event. The first is a complete loss of faith. You are traumatized in whatever way it is. Someone you know is traumatized and they don't receive any kind of emotional support. They don't receive any kind of counseling. They are essentially told, suck it up and deal. You just bear it, work through it on your own. You're a big girl, you're a big boy. The whole pull yourself up by the bootstraps mantra. That is a very unchristian thing to be doing to someone who has just been seriously traumatized and hurt, whether that's physically, spiritually, and or emotionally. So, assuming that you have the insult being added to injury, it's very possible that you have this loss of faith in God. Especially if you have the classic mantra in Tamar's case, she was violated. There are a number of people today who argue that victims of rape, they were asking for it by the way they were dressing, the way they were talking, whatever, which is a terrible thing to say. That is the worst insult that you can add to injury, is to say, they wanted it, they were asking for it. With that kind of lack of support, that kind of unsupportive words, actions, whatever, they don't feel love. They force themselves to become self-sufficient, and in that case, if they're self-sufficient, why do they need God? Their faith goes to the wayside. However, the flip side of that then is a strengthening of faith. Something bad happens to them. They are supported by family and friends. They are told this is not your fault in any way. Do not blame yourself in any way. The message they receive in church is God loves you. God sees you through the dark times. God is with you even now. That constant reassurance that God is with us in good times and bad. God rejoices with us in the good times. God mourns with us and walks with us in the bad times. God hears our thanksgivings just as much as our supplications and our mournings, our concerns. That constant reminder of God's love, God's presence, God's comfort, whether that's through words by family, friends, neighbors, words of a pastor, or the actions of family, friends, neighbors, fellow congregants, whoever, feeling that support, feeling that love along with those words. It really drills it in there. It really makes them feel like, wow, this isn't my fault. God is with me. God has been with me through this really rough patch. So all of a sudden you have this increase in faith. Really traumatic events, they can make or break a person's faith. They can solidify it, or they can just shatter it into 1,000 pieces. That's my opinion, though. This question doesn't have actual choices to pick from, so this is your opinion straight up. So what effect can a traumatic event like what happened to Tamar have on a person's faith in God? What do you all think? Let me know in the comments. Question 7. What have you found to be most helpful in moving beyond a bad experience? Professional counseling, talking it through with a friend, prayer, or something else? For me, being able to talk it through with someone. It doesn't have to be a counselor. It can be a friend. It can be a spouse. It can be keeping a journal, being able to talk things out more so with other people than with a piece of paper. But I'm a writer. That last one is sort of is personally beneficial for me. There's just a spiritual kind of, my feelings, my pain is now on the page. It is not in me. So it's a letting go process. But being able to talk to someone, feeling like you are not alone, feeling like there is someone out there who supports you, feeling like there is someone you can talk to, you can share your feelings with, not having to do the whole lone wolf and pulling yourself up by the bootstraps thing. I think that is the most helpful thing in moving forward, moving beyond a bad situation, however bad, whatever it may be, is being able to talk it through with someone, a friend, a family member, a counselor. Definitely talking to a counselor, someone who knows what they're talking about, knows what to do in these situations, is professionally trained in these situations. That can definitely help. Professional counseling can help. But also, unfortunately, mental health is not the most affordable. Not everyone can afford it. So definitely having someone that you can talk to, a pastor, a parent, a brother or sister, a spouse, even your child. Being able to talk to someone about what's going on with you, it helps with the loneliness. It helps to work through those bad situations. What do you all think? What helps you in working through a bad situation? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, our last question as always is, how can this group pray for you? If you do have prayer requests, please feel free to leave those in the comments section down below. If you have requests for a specific topic for future series, please let me know that as well. Otherwise, stay well, stay safe, and God bless.